Hey, pilots, retirement planning doesn't have to be overwhelmingly complicated. In fact, it certainly doesn't have to be as complicated as most people tend to make it. In this episode, we're going to unravel some of the unnecessary complexities that are often woven into the fabric of retirement advice. And what we're going to do is have Ryan join us and debunk some of the myths, simplify some strategies for us, and uncover the beauty of simplicity and straightforward planning. Stay tuned, it's going to be a great episode. Hey, Ryan, it is great to be with you again, my friend. How's life treating you?
I'm doing well, Walter. How are you? I hope you had a good Mother's Day weekend. How was it for you and your bride?
Yes, it was very good. We had a nice time visiting with loved ones and family, and we've gotten some extra family time over the last couple of weeks, and those we couldn't be in touch with. We had some nice phone calls and things like that, so it was all good. I know that this must have been a different kind of Mother's Day for you with everything that your family's been going through lately, but maybe a reason to be extra grateful this year.
Well, absolutely. I mean, you only have one person that brings you into this world. You only have one mom forever.
Right.
So, some good news with my mom. She actually is being moved from the ICU to a rehab facility.
Wonderful.
And finally starting to come back a little bit where I could talk to her. So I actually got to talk to her on Mother's Day and wish her a happy Mother's Day. And she asked some relevant questions. And it was the first time since she got put into medically induced coma that I saw her personality, that it was her there.
On
that was
Mother's
good.
Day. That's great.
That was good. And then had a nice Mother's Day with my wife and our kids. And, life, we tend to not focus on all the good things we have. We tend to focus on the bad things. And I think when life happens and bad things happen, you realize how blessed you really are.
Oh, absolutely. I think you're absolutely right about that. Unfortunately, the negative things in our life tend to scream a little bit louder than the positive things, and we have to sometimes actively factor against that. That happened to me recently, Ryan, on a trip, and it was a very interesting trip. It was one of great learning experiences. It had a ton of positives in it, but a few of the things that were bothersome, or what I would call, I guess, negatives, just tend to make you feel like you have this really bad impression of the trip, and then you have to zoom out and say, no. There was a lot to be thankful for and happy about with that experience in life. And we've got to do that a lot, don't we?
Well, absolutely. And, I'm more of a realist where my wife is always positive.
Okay.
And so, I think it's nice to have a spouse like that gets you to focus on all the good things and all the things you have going for you versus, hey, this one bad thing happened, or, hey, why do you have a bad attitude about, this random thing versus just looking at your overall life, being married, happy, healthy kids, healthy family. I mean, the things that really matter.
You're saying balance is a good thing? I mean, amazing. Who would have known? All right, let's talk about the beauty of simplicity on today's show, Ryan, specifically about retirement planning. And first of all, let's talk about advisors and maybe just other maybe notable figures in the financial world, even if they're not a true advisor, maybe media members, things like that. Do you think that there's this habit of making things harder than they need to be, and that gets communicated to the average investor and saver?
One of the hardest things for me to learn in this industry was that people don't want to know how smart I am, and they don't want to know how all the education that I've done to get where I am to understand these concepts. The old adage of keeping it simple, stupid. I don't want to go into the weeds with my clients unless they want to go there. The better I do at keeping concepts and ideas and things that we're doing in retirement simple is going to help those clients. One of the other things that I think is a huge upside to what I do is because I am a pilot, I understand their lifestyle, I understand their 401k, I understand the insurance side of things, their retirement.
Yeah.
It makes it a lot easier for me because I understand it better. I don't have to reinvent the wheel. I think a lot of other advisors that work with clients from all different industries, it's a lot harder for them to truly understand, hey, I got this new client and here's what they do. And I need to really understand their 401k plan and how their business model looks and how I don't have to do any of that. I know it. I live it. And so it makes it a lot easier to not only have that communication with my clients, but also to try to simplify it in a way that those pilots understand and understand how we can have some redundant systems in retirement, just like we do in the airplane.
I mean, sometimes I think you can have intentional complication, right? Somebody wants to make it hard so that they do seem smarter. Others, it may be inadvertent. It's just because they don't know maybe that their client really wants things simplified. And so it sounds like you've done a lot of work to try and find that right level. I think something else that's been interesting to watch over the years has just been the technological improvements, both in finding more information and having access to technology, software that helps us plan for retirement better. And I got to imagine there's a lot of parallels to the pilot world and to flying, where you guys have had technological improvements constantly that you have to keep up with. And I'm going to guess that sometimes those improvements make things simpler and sometimes it makes things a little bit more complicated.
Well, absolutely. It's both. It's both scenarios. I mean, one of my biggest pet peeves is to watch some advisor have some software where they spit out a 40-page beautiful color PDF for some client, which looks really nice,
Yeah.
but it's not really giving them anything that's useful. It's just a bunch of data that's spit out. And so once again, yes, technology gives us a lot of these tools, but I feel like we're going to do a lot better by picking through the stuff that really matters. I hate to say the cliff notes, but a lot of pilots want to know the cliff notes. Give me the overall of what's going on, or the most simplest of questions: am I going to be okay, or where am I at in planning for retirement? So yes, with a lot of those tools out there, there's some stuff that you can get some data that you don't normally or wouldn't previously have access to. But
Yeah.
I think once again, it comes back to taking all that data and then simplifying it for our clients. And the thing that I would say, most pilots know they have to save for retirement. They get that. Okay. Now, making sure that you have an efficient portfolio that's giving them the best returns until they retire is important. But I think the distribution phase of retirement is where the rubber really meets the road, and it's much, much more complicated. And that's where pilots really, really need an advisor to help them figuring out what pots of money to pull from, the tax side of retirement, and tax planning leading up to retirement is a huge thing that most people don't focus on.
There's a psychological component often to this too, as we talk about things being too complicating for somebody or needing to simplify a little bit. And if we looked at all retirement planners as a whole, there'd be a range of different emotions or habits or just psychological components that would come into play. I'm just curious if you could narrow in on one in the world of pilots that tends to be, I don't know, a drag for most pilots, or a reason why some pilots struggle with this planning, or why they need so much help getting through it. Is there a particular, I don't know, personality trait that you see pop up the most that either holds pilots back, or maybe it's a positive one that helps them?
Well, the first thing that I focused on is you used the word drag, which, pilots going to understand, having induced drag on their airplane.
I wish I was smart enough to have actually made that made that connection and that pun there, but yeah, it was an accident.
I think pilots are really guilty of procrastinating. I think that,
Okay.
they're flying around the world or whatever they might do. And when they get home, they want to focus on family. And so if there's some sort of a fear there for planning for retirement, which is probably one of the most important things you can do to protect your family, pilots tend to procrastinate. Hey, I'll do that next week, or, hey, I got this going on, I'll eventually get to that. And knowing that, I can call them out on it. Like, hey, you can't just ignore this and expect it to go away. I know, hey, we might want to do this next week or next month, but I think having a way to force them to make sure they're doing the steps for retirement, or forced discipline is what I call it, is really going to help people in the long term and get to that point where we are doing some retirement planning. Because the little details, even in your 20s and 30s, are going to have a drastic effect on how your retirement picture's looking like as you ease into retirement.
Absolutely. All right, let's zero in on the actual planning process. And I'm curious, where do you see pilots getting tripped up the most? Is it that they struggle with life insurance policies, or maybe they don't know why they have the investments they have, they don't know what they're paying in fees, or some other element of the planning process? Is there an area where you see most pilots struggling?
I think all of those things you brought up. I mean, obviously, life insurance is complicated, and understanding all the little bells and whistles that come with a policy is important. I think a lot of pilots are invested in stuff and they don't understand mutual funds, ETFs, what their exposure is to certain asset classes and what the goal of those asset class exposure is. So just understanding what a portfolio is versus just investing in one asset class. I see that a lot. Pilots like to stock pick. They like to just invest in one asset class. They like to invest in stuff that's popular right now, whether it's Bitcoin or big tech. And I think all investors are guilty of that, but I think pilots especially, they want that home run all the time, and it gets them in trouble. You bring up fees. I really think a lot of investors don't understand fees. I think there's so much put out there about, hey, we want to keep fees low, which that's 100% true. But sometimes you can cut off your nose to spite your face. I think a lot of pilots out there do not get a financial advisor because they don't want to pay a fee. And the simple fact is, had they have paid that fee, they would have gotten a lot more return over their career. And they've done many studies of this. I mean, I think it's an extra 3% per year is what the Alpha study did with Vanguard. And there's another one out there where you'd end up having 75% more money over the course of your career had you worked with an advisor. So focusing on fees and not being cheap, we'll call it, because that's what it is with pilots. They're being cheap. They don't realize actually how much that hurts them in the long term. And I find myself getting a pilot that's reaching out. They're 63, 64 years old, and all these mistakes have already been made, and it's much, much harder to clean it up and get them prepared for retirement had you been working with them a long time ago. And I personally feel like this is the same thing with TurboTax. Get a qualified CPA. They're going to find something that's going to help you more than what you're going to pay them. And I see pilots a lot of times still trying to do their own taxes. TurboTax is going on, then we're doing backdoor Roth conversions or something like that. And guess what? TurboTax doesn't know how to handle that. Pilots are cheap, okay? And they know they are, and I call them out for it. But this is your retirement. This is where you want to spend a little bit extra attention and maybe even a little extra money to make sure you're going to be in a better position.
Hey, real quick break from the podcast. We want to talk to you about the Retirement Toolkit. If you have not gotten your copy yet of the toolkit, listen up closely because Ryan is going to give us the details of what's in the toolkit. You even have one on hand, Ryan, that we can show people and some of the things that are inside of it and what kind of information can people learn?
Yeah, absolutely. If you go to retirepilots.com, you can get a free retirement toolkit, and we'll actually give you a free analysis of your portfolio so you can really see what's going on. But as you can see, we got some airmail here.
Nice.
That's what the toolkit looks like. Some of the things that are in there. There's a couple tax planning strategies with Zach Smith at Pilot Tax. We look at long-term records where we've got a 21-year track record of outperforming the S&P 500, GIPS certified. We can show you that. And of course, I write these with big crayons, big fat crayons for pilots. I mean, there's some Marines and Army aviators out there, but I got a couple books I've written that you're going to get to talk about retirement planning, how you should plan for your retirement, talking about taxes and tax planning,
Nice.
some other goodies, advice matters, how to let an advisor help you out, some of the data behind how much more you will have in retirement if you hire a professional. What we try to do is to try to get pilots not to speculate and gamble with their money. And I want to give you all the tools you need to not do that. Look at the data. It's completely free. We're here to help you out.
Very cool. So this is a free toolkit that you're going to get. And I don't want to gloss over that fact that you mentioned at the beginning. It also comes with a free portfolio analysis that you'll do after people get the toolkit.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you have no interest in doing anything else and you just want the free materials, I'll put your name right here. We'll send it out to you. But yes, you do get a free portfolio analysis. I think most of the people, after they see the content that's in there and read the book, they want to talk to us, and we can analyze your portfolio, see if we can add any value. The numbers don't lie. I mean, we're going to find out if we can add value, and we'll get on a Zoom call with you. We'll go through it. We'll teach you. We'll show you the numbers, and I like to call that the IQ test. At some point, the numbers don't lie, and you look at it and go, "Hey, if we can help you out, and do something better, if there's a better way, well, let's help you implement that strategy."
Very good. So no obligation to work together, but you definitely get the free toolkit, great resource, information. And then if you want to take next steps for that portfolio analysis, you get that as well. So a lot of great freebies there, Ryan. We appreciate you offering those to folks in the first place. I know a lot of people throughout the existence of this show have ordered them over the years, but we still got a good chunk of folks that probably are new to the show or haven't gotten their copy of the Retirement Toolkit. So be sure to get yours. Again, the way to get it is to go to retirepilots.com. That's retirepilots.com. complexities.com. And right there on the homepage, you're going to see an opportunity to get that toolkit. We'll also link to it directly in the description of today's episode, so look for it there as well. That's your retirement toolkit here on the Pilot's Advisor. Thanks, Ryan. Great points all across the board there, Ryan, and I think that's wise. We need to be shifting the conversation toward value and not just the raw numbers, and really making sure that we're squeezing the most value out of our decision-making in finances, especially when it comes to fees. If there are pilots watching or listening to today's episode, Ryan, and they're kind of, all right, I want to simplify my retirement. Yes, I feel a little bit overwhelmed, or maybe I'm overcomplicating it myself, or I've got someone in the picture that's overcomplicating it for me. Whatever the case may be, what are some of the first steps that they can take to start that process of simplification?
Well, the absolute first step is to reach out to the pilot's advisor, and we'll talk, analyze their portfolio and start helping them with these steps to, hey, let's simplify your life. Absolutely. I'd say one of the first things that I see with most pilots is just, we need to consolidate their accounts. They have what we call the financial junk drawer. I got a little bit of this, a little bit of that over here. I forgot about those other 401ks from other airlines, and I never brought them together. I can't even find where that 401k is.
Started a Roth at one point and then stopped contributing to it.
Yeah, my cousin got me to start this. I don't even know what it is. I forgot where it's at. I mean, you'd be amazed about having your finances all over the place versus getting it all consolidated in one place, and then you can actually see it, and all those things are working in concert with each other. Another thing is just understanding that 401k plan, making sure that we have, the ability to do Roth. But a lot of pilots don't even realize that they can do Roth inside of 401k because they think that they've already exceeded those Roth IRA income limits. So in many cases, a lot of the pilots I talk to before their clients have no clue about all the options that they have in their 401k and retirement planning that are really hurting them by them not taking advantage of it.
Sure.
I think that pilots knowing what they're invested in is important to an extent, but I think that understanding a diversified portfolio that's engineered to handle the ups and downs of the market is more important. And once again, this comes back to diversification and then simplification, simplifying why we're doing what we're doing. Is probably that concept of modern portfolio theory is a probably bigger deal than, hey, why are we invested in this individual stock?
Yeah. I mean, it's a great point. I think if you're building something, right, you're making a widget. If you can make that widget with 10 parts instead of 100, why wouldn't you do that? To make things simpler, easier to understand, easier to find out what it is when something breaks or doesn't go according to plan. Just all of those things, you can see the just sort of the cascading of events that would happen if you have a simpler start to your plan, and everything else just gets easier, right?
Well, and actually, there's a good lead in for you bringing that up. And what I'd say about that is when we used to fly these older airplanes, and for me, it was the 727, they wanted us to know every little detail about that airplane. They wanted to know what this screw did, whether this was on the AC or DC bus. And I mean, you basically had to build the airplane from the ground up. And over time, they started realizing, why are we teaching pilots and why are we making them do this? I think a lot of it was the culture back then. It was a little bit more of a haze. The pain that you had to go through to play the game. And I think as we've evolved, we started learning, well, hey, if the pilot can't do anything to affect that, then who cares? It's not going to help them in an emergency situation or while they're flying the airplane. Let's focus on the things they can control. And if we can simplify those systems so they understand it in a better way for the things that they can touch and adjust, then it doesn't really matter what kind of screw is it over, keeping that thing together, or whether it's on the AC or DC bus. And so
if your life-saving checklist can be 20 steps instead of 150, you've got a better chance of saving that airplane, right?
Focus on what matters. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think that evolution is a good thing. And I think there's a little bit of that in the financial services industry as well, to where we have these things that are old and they're outdated and they haven't evolved. And I hate to say it, a lot of advisors haven't evolved. I think over time we've learned what's good and bad for clients. And when I see that we still have registered reps, and I'm going to say it, and it's going to make a lot of people upset, even broker dealers, maybe that's not in the best interest of our clients. Maybe picking individual stocks isn't, and speculating and gambling with our money. Why are we still teaching that? Why would we not have every client working with a fiduciary, working with somebody that they know is legally obligated to act in their best interest? And like any other industry, I think, there's always evolution, and a lot of things are learned from stuff that happens in the market and bad things that happen to clients. I think that something as simple as what we just watched with the cryptocurrency scam. I mean, what did Tom Brady lost 30 million?
Something like that. Yeah. Was that the FTX or whatever it
Yeah.
was?
Well, and even Bernie Madoff. I mean, what do we learn from that? We need multi levels of oversight. You can't have your money custodied in one place and investing it at the same place.
We don't all have $30 million to lose and not, have it be more than a bad day like Tom Brady does. So,
did you watch the roast of Tom Brady?
I saw clips. I didn't see the whole thing, but I saw some clips online.
I really enjoyed it.
There was no holding back. Yeah, there was no holding back in that. So yeah, go check that out if you haven't seen it, folks. Well, I think that's a great place to wrap up, Ryan, because the message is simple. Simplify. There is a lot of power in simplifying your financial plan, your portfolio, your approach to finances and retirement. And Ryan is really good at helping people simplify. It seems like probably every single day, Ryan, you're meeting with somebody and you're finding a complicated plan and helping make it simpler. Is that pretty much a daily routine for you at this point?
Well, absolutely. And I never realized how much of this is behavioral. And so being able to help people through the emotion of it is a huge thing. And we're talking about making it real simple for all the pilots out there. You remember how we joke about push down, trees get big, pull back, trees get smaller? We're talking about that kind of level. Like, I'm going to try to draw it out with big fat crayons. And I actually find that most of my clients appreciate that, and if they want to get into the weeds, we can get into the weeds. But for the far majority of people, they don't want that. They just want to be able to be given the tools, understand why we're doing it, and just knowing that we're going to be in a much better position and ready for retirement because of us planning in advance and making sure that we have all these systems working together.
Absolutely. Well, here you go. If you want to get in touch with Ryan and have a conversation about your financial plan, how can I improve? How can I simplify this? How can I take the next steps to a better and more solid financial future? All you have to do is call or text Ryan directly at 843-475-3038, and you can set up a time to meet remotely or maybe at an airport, if your paths cross somewhere in the near future. Wherever you are, doesn't matter. Ryan can work with you and help you get to and through retirement with more confidence and clarity. 843-475-3038. If you're not quite ready to take that step of having a one-on-one conversation, but you want to learn a little bit more, a great first step for many to take is to get the retirement toolkit that Ryan has assembled and put together. It's packed with great information, Ryan's book, The Pilot's Advisor, and so much more goodies and helpful tidbits that'll really kind of give you that just first introduction to what it really means to put together a solid financial plan and to walk down the right path of planning for retirement. You can get that toolkit for free by going to retirepilots.com and just look for the toolkit on the homepage there. Retirepilots.com. We're going to link to it in the description of today's show as well, so you can find that very easily. Ryan, thank you so much for your help today, my friend. Appreciate it.
Well, Walter, I always appreciate you having me on, and I want to reiterate what you brought up. I want to help people, and so I don't have a problem sending out a bunch of free materials to help people. And I think that best first step is ordering the retirement toolkit. You're going to get my books. You're going to get some stuff on tax planning. You're going to get a lot of stuff on how to handle the ups and downs of the market. And I think a lot of people enjoy reading and getting some research done in advance, listening to some of the podcasts. And by the time you set up a meeting with me, you already know the philosophy and you're ready to move forward. And I think that helps a lot of people. So I appreciate you putting the retirement toolkit out there front and center.
Yeah, and I should mention the tagline of the book that you wrote, Ryan, The Pilot's Advisor, name of the podcast, of course, Why Pilots Today Need Specific Financial Advice. And so true. Just working with any old advisor may not do the trick. You may need somebody who kind of can walk the walk, talk the talk, knows the language that you go through, knows what's important, knows what it's like to be a pilot, and that's somebody like Ryan who can help kind of on both sides of the equation, the financial side, but also knows the pilot world and has kind of walked in your shoes. And there's something really important, I think, about having that is not every industry's got that, Ryan, where somebody can do that, do both things and help them out and get all the way to that finish line. So it's pretty nice that you have carved out that niche to be able to help people. So very neat. Thanks for joining us, everybody. We'll see you next time right back here on The Pilot's Advisor. Until then, take care.